Hello and welcome back to Intoxicated Intellect. Today we have we're running a little bit short crew today, but you also get to see one of our other friends from the campaign hop in. He's going to be a fresh DM, so we're going to give him a little bit of advice. He'll help him out a little bit. My name's Ben. With me today we have Brady, our normal DM, and one of our future DMs. We have Jake. You might know him better as Agdar. But before we get going too far, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for this video. Interactions with us really help us kind of learn not only what content you guys want to watch, but also helps us get a word out there, helps us kind of grow as a channel. So, Brady, what specifically are we talking about today?
DCs, and as a DM, when to use them, how to set them, and when to freak your players out by asking for a DC. And then no matter what they roll, they either pass or fail just because like you already weren't expecting a DC in that, and you're just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just screw around with some players because DM's got to have a little fun too.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess the first question I would have for Jake is, what of those three topics do you want to learn more about first?
So, as a future DM, I'm currently writing a one-shot for the boys of the campaign plus a couple of people, where it's going to involve the Agdar shenanigans that you may or may not have seen, plus all the ones inside my head that I can actually get away with.
When you make the rules, anything is a shenanigan.
Exactly. The one thing I've been kind of struggling with is, without giving too much away, because obviously these are two of my players.
Right.
What to set, certain traps, or, say you're jumping over a ravine and, something needs to happen, what dex save, or, arrows are coming out of the wall and you need to make something, or, like a con save, or, something like that. How do you kind of determine what the save would need to be?
Gotcha.
Depending on the difficulty of said trap.
So there are some cases in some of the source books where they will mention specific saves for certain traps. And if you can find those, great. If you're homebrewing your own, or if you just don't really like those saves on there, the way I have always looked at it, and you kind of saw it a little bit with the Fantasy Flight stuff, was when like how difficult of a check is it supposed to be? So say you are, okay, there's a pit trap, it's 2 feet wide, it's just supposed to be you step on it and it drops. Or it's a pit trap that's, 6 feet wide. That you might have a second to react on it, but unless you get moving, you aren't going to be able to clear it. And so that changes the DC for, like, say, a athletics or acrobatics check to clear it. Something that's 2 to 3 feet wide is pretty simple to jump, even with some gear on your back. So something like that, somewhere in like 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Something that, if you're really unathletic, you can still fuck it up because you do have gear on you. Like, it is not, a for sure thing that you're going to clear a 3 to 4 foot gap. But if it's, say, like a 6 to 8 foot gap, you're going to need to be fairly athletic, fairly strong, or fairly dexterous to get across that safely. Something like that I would put closer to like a 16. Just because the increase in difficulty, and kind of like for every 2 feet beyond that, I would add another.
And then going off of that same thing, say you have that 2x2 floor trap or whatever, but now say your players are running through a tunnel where the floor is covered in slippery mud. Well, that's going to add another level of difficulty. So while you'd still have that 2x2 trap that would normally have a DC of, let's just say, 11, with the new slippery floor added in, that can be bumped up to a 14 or a 15 because there's something else that they have to contend with while trying to jump off of and away from that trap. Because then when they go to land, they say they only hit a 13 on their save, they may have avoided the trap, but then say they slip and fall onto the ground afterwards. So they didn't succeed on the whole DC, but they still succeeded on the first part. And just different environmental aspects can raise or lower a DC as well.
Okay, so something that just kind of popped into my head. So as Ben, you were a GM for the Fantasy Flight game Star Wars campaign that we ran, and Brady, you are obviously our current dungeon master.
Yeah.
Something that kind of just occurred to me. Do you guys, so specifically for D&D, would you set a DC like a range? Like, so, in Fantasy
Okay.
Flight games, I'm thinking of the pass fail system where you can
Right.
have so much success but still some failure. Or, is it more of just like a DC 15, you roll 15 and up, you're good, and then below it, it's a fail? Or would you have kind of like a range in there where, like, say you had a DC 15 and somebody rolled like a 12. So like, hey, yeah,
Okay.
you jumped the pit, but again,
Ate
greasy
shit on the
floor,
other side.
you ate
Yeah.
shit,
Okay.
instead of just falling into it.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain like Fantasy Flight really played into that just with how they wielded, how their dice rolled, how their mechanics rolled. So they went really well with the. Yeah, you did the check, you passed it, you saved it, but you rolled enough failure or enough despair or what have it to have some kind of setback happen with it. With D&D, I don't see a reason why you can't. Ultimately, and for me, it would come down to what interactions you want your players to have with that. If it's a simple, I just want to see if they clear this, or if they pass this, they take damage. If they don't, or if they don't pass this, they take damage. If they do, they're good. Something like that is probably just going to be a hard line DC. But something with, like we're saying with this like pit trap example that we're going with the greasy floor. So for something like that, okay, your base check to jump the pit trap might be at 12. Your base check to survive to get through the grease the grease spill or the slide, say 13, 14, whatever you want to put it at. With that kind of a check, I don't see a reason why you couldn't make that a range where you say, okay, as long as you make a 12, you don't fall down the pit. But if you don't roll above, say, a 15, since those are just the numbers we're using, you will incur some damage, be knocked prone, something like that, just from like flailing about on the other side.
Okay.
I was actually watching a different YouTuber who made a video on this. Not this topic in its entirety, but it was one part of his video. It was a dungeon coach, and he referred to this like range of DCs as failing forward. So, like Ben was saying, with that 15 to successfully not only clear the trap but also land normally on the greasy floor. Or if you only passed the pit trap, let's say they passed the pit trap and failed the greasy floor, they're still moving forward even though they failed a check, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, a pass versus a fail, unless the fail, like you are okay with the fail stopping progress. Regardless of whether or not it's a pass or a fail, the party should still be able to move forward.
So the ultimate goal is party progression.
Yes. When it comes down to it, that's where it needed to be. Like an example that I know, Brady, you didn't have the experience in the Fantasy Flight game, at least at this particular moment. I know we played like a session or two with you. Do you remember when I had Sasso roll the strength check to pull everyone up out of the spice mine? So regardless of what he rolled, hey Justin,
Whoa, no.
Oh, bye Justin.
Bye.
So regardless of what he rolled, it was always going to be he was always going to pass. He was always going to be able to help everyone up. What was really going to be the reasoning behind the check was how much work was it going to have to be for Sasso. He passed it with flying colors, so it was really just some flavor of him bleeding and like you would like a power lifter when he's really going heavy. But had he failed a little bit of the check, he still could have helped you guys come up, but he would have suffered varying levels of strain and exhaustion as he was doing it. So a failed check doesn't necessarily have to be you're not going, or you fell in the pit trap, you died. It can be, you cleared the pit trap, but your ankle caught the edge of it and you smashed face first, took some damage, or the thunder, or something you've been thinking out over the course of the day, how you failed that or how you something like that. It can come back later, and you don't sleep well tonight. You don't gain a full long rest. You only gain a short rest. There are other ways that you can kind of work fails into the game.
And do you guys both remember, before we ever started recording our sessions, it was a pretty early on one where you guys were all in this mine and were having to cross a wooden bridge that if you fell through it, you were just insta-dead.
Oh, yeah.
And Elduin failed the check to make it across, but then there was immediately another check for him to see if he could grab onto the wall. And that's just another thing, like, as a DM you can have in your back pocket is, oh shit, this player just failed this super important check. The fuck do I do? And you go, okay, immediately make them do another check to see if they can't save that first check.
Yeah. Or if one of your other players jumps in quick enough, like I throw my rope down to them or something like that, you can have them make a check to try to save it.
So I guess that also depends on how savage of a DM you want to be.
Yes,
because
and that ultimately comes down to DM.
Yeah, because I'll be real. Like this one shot I'm building, you're not going to survive.
Yeah,
if you do, I've done my job wrong.
Right, and that is once again a difference between like campaign and one shots. One shots, I mean, even campaigns you can be pretty brutal in it, but one shots you really have a lot of opening to be able to be like, all right, you're not going to live. Let's go.
Well, let's take it from. So if I were to do a campaign, like I would honestly, depending on the level of like I love Agdar, but like if I was running my own campaign, I would. You guys that have probably re-rolled characters once or twice by now. Granted, I'm a savage bastard, and depending on how much I like the party, it may or may not happen.
Right.
But what if you want to be that savage DM? Like, are you just looking for hard fails, or are you trying to like give them a chance?
I always err on the side of give them a chance.
Yeah.
If regardless of how brutal you want to be. And usually, like, if it's like, hey, I'm gonna be, like, rough on this one, make sure you have, like, an extra character rolled up, just so if someone fucks up early on, they can, like, work something in and they can still play the rest of it. But in my opinion, there should always be a chance of success, whether and however minuscule that is. So, like, this thing could be very useful in guiding, like, say you're trying to find, like, a history check or something like that. Very useful in guiding the party forward. However, a lot of that reveals a lot of what the plot might be. But once again, super helpful for the party. Can let them skip by a bunch of stuff, or can keep them on the right path. It's something very important for them to know. Say your intelligent character on a natural 20 roll. The max he can get is a 25. I might make that check, honestly, 25. Like, you can do this, but you need a natural 20 to do this. And the only person who's going to make this check is this person. And even if you have all those extra buffs, like guidance and all that, there's still no guarantee you can match up to 25. Because the way I run games is the only time you get critical, is in combat. 20 is a crit, a 1 is a massive fuck up. That's the only time I run criticals of either of those. Okay. At least in how I personally do it.
Yeah. Oftentimes, at least recently, you guys will hear me say for a total of, even if it is a natural 20, simply because that check may be a 24, 25. Mm-hmm. And while you don't want to use that high of a check all the time, because then the players are going to get discouraged, then they're not going to have fun in turn. The DM's not going to have as much fun. But those insanely high checks, like Ben was saying, use them on the super important things like almost game breaking. Yeah, reveals.
Game breaking, or they will completely change the path of the game. Like
stuff that would make you skip 5 pages of stuff you've written as a DM. Yes. Like, oh fuck, all right, you guys showed up to the BBEG's front door and knocked. Like, Okay, so I guess this could be another video, but something I listen to a lot of D&D podcasts, and we obviously do stuff different.
Right.
As a DM, you've got your different house rules. So what a critical does, what you do on crit fails, what you do, like I've a little bit of a spoiler. The way I'm going to do, say, like a critical attack, like you roll a crit, you're going to roll 1 attack die, your regular attack, and then you're going to get to put another full roll on top of that. Whereas we do it, So as we do, like, you roll twice, you roll 2 attacks, add them up. I've seen other people do, you just get like 1.5.
Roll your dice and you double it, or stuff like that is really what you like as a game master. Especially for like criticals, I don't think there's one right way to go about doing it, honestly. I like to personally play the double the dice, so you roll your damage dice like normal, and then you double that.
Okay.
I like playing it that way, just because it's still, even though it's a crit, like it always amplifies what you do. Sometimes that crit can still be a little kind of which is, a bit, kind of a buzzkill as a player, but it still keeps combat interesting. Like, hey, even a crit's not necessarily going to save you here, but if you roll max damage on a crit, you're gonna waste them.
Right.
I know, like another podcast I watch does exactly what you're saying. You roll your damage dice, say you roll a d6, you're getting another 6 added onto it because it always punches up a lot higher.
It'd be Gus and Friends, wouldn't it?
That would be Gus and Friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I got the idea.
Yeah,
I do just want to try to bring us back to DCs specifically.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting off topic.
Yep, as we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
It's kind of who we are.
Right. Yeah.
So in my opinion, kind of, we're doing the DC thing. I think perception rolls would also kind of be in this category. Like, that's the other thing, because obviously, you've got the more perceptive of the party.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are different levels to perceptiveness. Like, oh, you see nothing, or you see something, but you're not sure what it was, or holy fuck, that is this.
Right.
So perception, since it is probably one of the most common checks a party's gonna run.
Yeah.
At least personally, when I say, all right, go ahead and make a perception check, in my mind, immediately as I'm saying that, there is a range of, all right, what does a 1 to 5 get, a 5 to 10, 10 to 15, etc., etc. Because when you roll perception, even if it's a nat 1, you're gonna at least see the darkness in front of you, versus if it's a natural 20, you know exactly what you're looking at. But say it's that 10 or whatever. Okay, yeah, you see a figure walking by, or you hear the crackling of leaves or snow under what sounds like human feet. So perception checks is where that range of DCs can probably take its full effect. It's the way I run things.
Yeah. I had the thought of like a Where's Waldo painting, where like 1 to 5 is, hey, look, it's a painting. Waldo's in there somewhere.
Right.
Going up from that, you've got like, oh, hey, there's all these people dressed in the red and white stripe and this, that, and the other thing. And then like, your 15 to 20 or even your nat 20 is like, there that motherfucker is.
Yep. I got him.
So is it kind of like, do you guys kind of run like a 4, like a scale of 4 since it's, a 20, or is it kind of depending on what it is? Depends. There's like a 1.
Yeah. So for me, it depends on what exactly the check is for. So for example, let's say, like we're in our dome and we get, we can hear footsteps outside, like happened last, what was it? Either 2 episodes ago or last episode. I don't remember exactly where it came in.
The episode that hasn't aired yet.
Yep. So, when that happened, like in an instance where like, it's tense, you don't know if people know you're there, you don't want to like, reveal yourself yet. Ultimately it depends on what I want that particular, event to be. If I want them to be found out, so they have to think on their feet, panic, and make it happen, DC is going to be a little bit higher. So I might say every 6, 5 to 6. Where like an 18 to a 20, they know where they can tell what's happened. Or if it's something where like, okay, these hooligans are coming back drunk, they're not really going to notice anything. I might make that a 3 or a 4 or something that's got a lot, quicker of a build up, so that you can say like, they're not going to be hiding themselves very well. They're drunk as shit. Or these guys are really stealthy. It's going to be really hard to see them. It's going to, change my scaling a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Kind of one, depending on what you want them to see.
Yep.
And then, what would actually make it a good story element as well. Yep. That's ultimately what's important.
When it comes to checks, specifically perception checks, as a DM, it's always fun just to throw them in wherever.
Oh yeah, this is also because suspense and intrigue.
Because every time the words "make a perception check" come out of a DM's mouth, the entire party goes, "Shit, is there something around here that we should be looking for?" And most of the time, yeah, even if it's gonna take that 18 or 20 for them to figure it out. But other times it's solely because you just want to have a laugh to yourself and make the party panic a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I rolled a 20. Oh, there's a leaf there on the ground
Yeah.
as you're walking through the forest.
You hear a tree branch snap. The wind took it.
Yeah. Like
Or even, I rolled a natural 20. You don't see anything. Just a big old...
There was one campaign I was playing in about a year ago where the DM had me roll a perception check after I'd shot and killed a deer for scavenging food, and the reveal that I got made it seem like there was something out there that I didn't want to fuck around with. And then in session the next day came around, and the DM goes, "Why didn't you go collect your food that you had just killed?" I went, "Because of the description you gave me." And he's like, "I was just fucking with you." I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
what do you expect? So
Yeah.
Beautiful.
like, as a DM, checks can be
It's fun. I like calling for
Devious.
random insight checks.
yeah.
Random insight checks are fun just so it gets the party thinking, are these people lying to me? Are they lying to me?
So Ben,
Are they?
say you're DMing and someone goes, "I want to make an insight check onto this character that they're conversing with."
Okay.
How do you go about setting your insight check DCs?
For the fact of the matter is, first, are they lying or not? Because if they're not, I'll still call for one because it's funny, and they'll roll a natural 20. Hey, he's pretty honest. Yeah, seems like straight up. Seems good to you. A lot of that depends on. I will base that off of, say, like the charisma of whatever they're talking to.
Okay.
So like if it's a like a paladin or a priest or like a politician or someone that would have a higher charisma, the check to determine whether or not they're lying is going to be a lot higher. The other thing I might do is, honestly, and this I like doing it this way because I like competing roles. Is
Deception
I will
versus
just
insight?
I will just roll the character's deception, and you have to beat my roll with your modifiers. I like doing it that way, but when it comes to, like, say, just some random NPC that I hadn't played with, I have no stat block for, I'm just running with it. Does it make more sense for, like, if, say, it's some random cultist? Cultist probably has a low charisma because he's following somebody else along with the cult. It's going to be probably pretty easy to tell if he's lying or not, versus... okay, there's this, like, innkeeper or town guard or someone who talks to people all day. They're going to be a little bit tougher. So for, like, the cultist, I might make it, like, a 12 to a 13. Versus, say, like, a town guard or an innkeep that I don't have a stat block for. I might make that, like, a 14 or a 15. Still relatively easy for the character with a high wisdom to tell that they're lying because they're not skilled at it. But because of their different levels of... interaction with people, I would change up, how, even if it's slightly, how you go, like, what that DC would be.
Gotcha.
What about for you? How would you handle that?
Normally, it depends, again, like you said, who they're talking to. If they're talking to some rando NPC that I had to come up with on the spot, an insight check's
talking
not...
to Boblin the Goblin?
Yeah, like, they go into the tavern, they want to know if Boblin Goblin's telling the truth or whatnot. That insight check DC is going to be so low it's almost not worth rolling, versus you've had 5 sessions of lead up to get to this one interaction with this person, and you want to know if they're being honest or not. That's going to be a lot higher, and that DC isn't ever set in my mind until, like, say the person the party's interacting with is mid spiel or whatnot, and someone breaks in going insight check. That DC is gonna be higher than if they had waited till the end of the spiel to be able to hear everything that NPC had to say.
Fair.
Just because then you have all of the information of what they were telling you.
Right.
To go
It's
off
like
of.
when you buzz in too early at Jeopardy.
Exactly.
All right, answer the question, fucker. What do you got?
So, okay, let's, if I can see a DC save for an insight check being square if, say, NPC is telling the truth.
Right.
What about, so if you write in your NPC is telling a lie, straight up telling a lie. Like this is.
Mm-hmm.
When is it more personal preference whether you would either set a DC or say you would just make an opposing deception check from the NPC? You know,
that is going to be entirely DM preference.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, does the DM want to take the 5 seconds in their brain and use that extra decision in a game where the DM's already making 1.5 million decisions, or do they just want to say, "Oh, I'm going to let the dice decide the fate of what happens"?
Fair enough.
So for that, it's just DM preference on that.
And I usually have some, like I'll usually go in to any session with at least like, okay, if this, if they call for an insight check, I'm going to scale it as, say they get like a 12 to 13. They seem a little fishy, but most of it seems above board. Okay, they rolled a 16, and he's fishy. You don't know exactly what he's lying about, but he's lying about something.
So it's kind of just like, what you're feeling.
Yep.
And one thing to always be cognizant of is the DC does not change depending on the player character that is attempting the roll.
Yep. Yeah.
Because
it's really
as much as DMs harp on
think
players of metagaming, that's just the DM metagaming.
Yeah.
If you're having your, let's say, Warlock, who's a very charismatic character, wanting to do a persuasion or a deception check versus your wizard, who's not going to have high charisma, that DC needs to be the same because the party players have different roles.
Right.
And it's just, okay, the wizard wants to try to do this one. Good luck, I guess.
Go for it.
I would say the only time I'll ever change a DC that I've set for anybody will be if, say the barbarian makes an intelligence check. Because, sure.
Because why not?
If then the wizard tries to make that same intelligence check, I'll let him do it, but I'm raising the DC because someone else already tried it.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah. Just it helps prevent that, like, okay, I'm gonna try it now. I'm gonna try it now.
So, if you raise, at what point do you turn it off? Because I mean, we've got a party of 5 at our max.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like we can't all just go down the line like, oh, I want to see what's up. I want to see what's up. Like. You, for the first maybe 2 or 3, you can raise the DC, but at like what point do you just shut it off? Like, no, you just can't. Like,
that's the neat part.
Timing. Yeah.
You either get timing, or you don't, and you just don't let them know after player character 3 that the roll becomes impossible.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And just like, all right, if you want to sit here and waste time, I'll waste time. It's fine.
But you ain't gonna find out shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at this point, you've fucked it. Like, it's not happening. You lost the information. You already looked in that book, you just didn't find it.
Don't be afraid to let characters use other skills to make other checks. So, like...
Yeah, if there's a creative way to go about doing it.
In D&D, deception or persuasion or intimidation are normally based off of charisma.
Mm-hmm.
But your hulking barbarian is not going to be a charismatic
It's
person.
your least intimidating person in the party.
But you're telling me he's walking through a saloon, beats up 17 people, and then demands information from somebody? Okay, that's going to be intimidating.
He's going to get the information.
Let them use their strength as the intimidation modifier.
Okay.
So it's okay. And that gets into a little homebrewy, but don't be afraid to let your characters be creative like that.
Yeah.
Even if in your mind you're like, no, that's not how I envisioned it. That's not what this DC's set for.
Welcome to working with people.
Exactly.
Right, or kind of even in that vein, basing it off of like, you've got your charismatic bard, right? Your stereotypical wants to fuck everything bard. Some NPCs might know the game that they play and are just not gonna fucking have it. Like, no matter how high they roll, but you've got, your steadfast paladin or warrior clad in whatever, plate mail and stuff. And it's just like, look, here's the level. We're going to do it like this. And, I guess you could let that work. Whereas like, whipping your pecker out and rolling a 20 is, not.
Right. Yeah. That, the way I've always kind of ruled that is, regardless of the check. So a lot of people like to think, you see the the meme that, persuasion, I rolled an extra 20, they do what the fuck I say. Persuasion's not mind control. No. If that were the case, any person who's good at talking could own the world.
I mean,
it
not far
helps
off,
you.
but
I mean, not far off.
Yeah.
But basically, it's but there's a certain degree, like they're never going to convince some people because some people just flat disagree with them and will stick to their guns on that. What they're saying might make sense. I could conceivably see the argument to it. Like they're like, I understand where you're coming from. I see the way you see this. I disagree with you. There can be a guard whose sole job is to not open this fucking gate. No matter what that party does, they won't open the gate, but it might be like, guys, I can't open this gate. You can try going, like, there might be a window around the back that's open. I don't know. There's usually, like, Fred's cooking in there and it usually smells like ass.
And another thing with DCs in, your charismatic bard versus your paladin, is how so say you're going for a social interaction, and at one point your party comes up all cocky and badass and is demanding this and this and this and this from the town's guard or whatnot. That DC is going to be a little different than if they come up humble, just like normal people, like trying to have a conversation with this guard. It just as it would in real life, how you're going to react to an interaction, kind of understand how you would react in that situation, depending on how the party's coming at that NPC, and then base the DC off of that.
Okay. So definitely an on-the-fly thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
DCs are very rare, at least social DCs are very rarely something you can set beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Social DCs are hard to set beforehand. You either need to do competing roles or just kind of wing it. And that's one of the things, the nice thing about winging it is you can kind of balance on the fly as you're going through. So say, you're thinking, oh, I'll set this as a 15, and your warlock or your bard's talking to him and just blows, like, I rolled a 22. Okay, they can roll a lot higher than the 15. It's like, I rolled a 13 for a 22. Okay, so 15's not going to be enough for this. Okay, they're starting to work on it. Okay, but now they're, continuing the lie. They're continuing the persuasion. It's going to have to get, proceedingly more difficult. So you can kind of help to balance it out that way if you need to. You're not changing it on the fact that it's a different character saying it. You're changing the DC based on the fact that, okay, this was effective, but you're also, as you lean into things that they're not okay with, or that, once you get to the point where you really want them to do that, there's a, kind of a pendulum swing that you can do of, okay, they passed this check. Okay, they failed this check. Okay, they passed this check, of lowering and increasing DCs.
Fair enough.
And now for our last topic in today's video that we've kind of hinted at throughout is, when as a DM do you just make up asking for a DC check?
Oh,
when do I want to fuck with the characters?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, straight up, when do I want to mess with them? What would be a fun way to instill a little bit of chaos into the party at a place where they're feeling pretty safe?
So
a good one for me is always watches at night. Mm-hmm. I love that shit. There might be nothing there. I'm cool with nothing being there. Even if you roll a natural 20, nothing's there. Still make you roll it.
So, something I've kind of been discovering, and without giving away too much, because like I said, these boys will end up playing this. I'm toying with the ideas of, having see, this is one shot. Having so many just fucked up and untrustworthy checks that when they come to the real one, they don't believe it. Or, rolling a whole bunch of shit just for nonsense. Like,
you are going to sow so much chaos into a party.
Oh my God.
That there comes a point as a DM where, you're making them roll all these checks just for shits and giggles. But when they start questioning every action they're gonna do for 10, 15 minutes at a time because they don't know if it's a real check or a fake check, it, like Ben just said, it's gonna slow that game down so much.
Okay.
So for me, it's one of those, I try to pick and choose my times to do it. You don't want to do it all the time or else no check matters. But if you never do it, all right, I just don't ever have to ask for a check. I'm just doing things.
So one of my... go ahead, Ben.
Go for it.
Okay.
So, like, one of my, favorite things to do, like I said earlier, is call for an insight check. just like I know the character's telling the truth, or I know the character's lying. I'll still call for an insight check, just because one, not a lot of people think, oh, this character might be lying to me. I think in the entirety of our Fantasy Flight game, no one ever asked if a character was lying to the party. I lied to you guys all the fucking time.
And I don't think there's been a single time in D&D where you haven't asked if someone's lying.
Because we just don't trust you.
Yeah.
Ben's trustworthy. You're not.
Fair.
It's the hat.
It's gotta be. Gotta be the hat. One of my favorite things is, like when it comes to DCs not meaning anything, is say a player comes out with a plan so outlandish, so crazy, that you're just trying not to laugh your ass off sitting behind the DM screen, and you go, all right, roll such and such in check. And in your mind, you're thinking, I don't care what they roll, this is succeeding simply because it's just so crazy.
Too good of an idea.
Exactly.
The rule cool wins out sometimes.
But you're still instilling that oh shit moment in your players of, if this doesn't roll well, I'm fucked. Like there goes this crazy ass idea I just came up with.
Once again, bringing up Sasso, I was already planning on him succeeding that check. Regardless, I was gonna make him roll it, because if the pressure of him being like, all right, let's do this, is one, a big character moment for him. Two, it's a fun moment for the entire party when he does succeed it, even if he's not, fully there. Like, everyone was all about Sasso that day after he pulled everyone up. Everyone was fucking cheering at the table. That's really fun. The rule of cool sometimes has to win out just to be like, all right, guys, let's fucking see how this goes. This is
the way you were supposed to go in, but you came out this way, and we just have to let that work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. All in all, DC's as a DM is very on the fly. You still want to make it challenging if it's a physical based check, but not completely impossible, or else why are you even letting them? And then social checks are very, very just spur of the moment, and then
my kind of go for it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good. You're good.
Discord stuff's hard sometimes.
Just a little.
My last kind of little leaving advice here is especially at the beginning of a campaign or the beginning of a one shot. I'm always a fan of balancing on the fly. So your first couple might be lower, or they might feel a bit higher, or a bit too high for the party to make. Okay, so as you're going through the rest of the dungeons, increase that increase that DC or decrease the DC based on how the party's been rolling so far. So say I set the first one at a 13 and every single buddy passed it with flying colors. Okay, the next one I'm going to set might be a 14 or 15 because clearly that's too easy for the party. And kind of give yourself some room to grow those checks throughout the one shot to balance it out.
And know, if you ever come across a DC set in one of the source books, every single one of those is a suggestion.
Yes.
To be honest, I have looked at 0 source books for the writing of this one shot.
And that's a fun way to DM sometimes, I'll be perfectly honest.
I feel like it would screw me up.
Don't mind me with 17 different source books open on my screen right now.
Yeah, don't mind any of my source books behind me. It's really fun just to be like, fuck it, I'm just doing something. We'll see what happens.
That's I'm going strictly by the campaign we've played, the rules I've learned, and the fact that I still have yet to read the rule book.
There you go.
Happens. But with that, everyone, I would like to thank you all for watching another episode here on Intoxicated Intellect. Thank you, Jake, for joining us for the first time. We hope to see you in a lot more of these coming up. And everyone, like Ben said in the beginning, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.